Would you welcome the very inventive Richard Pryor? Richard?
Hello? Hope I'm funny?
Richard Pryor was one of the most iconic and most successful stand-up comedians of his generation. Quickly, he became one of the highest-paid African-American actors of his time, becoming a household name and sharing the silver screen with other known movie stars. Now today, you see other stand-up comedians using the same formula to success.
Remember when the Gong Show was out?
Yep.
Okay, with the Gong Show, all the bars started having Gong Show night. So I went up to one of these Gong Show nights. Mm-hmm. That's where I kind of got started.
What did you do when you were on stage?
I did all of Richard Pryor's material.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me and taking this some time to put this sit down with me. So I really appreciate it. But so tell me about this book. What is this book really all about?
Well, it's about my life. It's a memoir of my life. It's about the struggles I've gone through, the triumphs, the victories, the roller coaster rides, the tunnels you go through in life, and is putting it all on paper. And it's also showing how parallel my father's life and my life was at certain times throughout the history of our lives and the journeys that we took and how we sometimes took the exact same journeys to get through life.
So could you give me a little bit of an example of how your lives were parallel?
Drugs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that was really the main thing, having that addictive personality where almost anything that you gravitate towards, you can become addicted to it.
Right.
And it's kind of one of those same things, you know, when I noticed in my life, when you first start to do something, you know, let me try this because of peer pressure of friends and you want to be like everybody else. But then I realized, and you know, 6 months down the line, you're still doing it on a regular basis, that it's totally engulfed your life.
Right.
And that's basically a lot of things, especially that with me and my father, dealing with that was a major hurdle.
What was the drug of choice at that time that you were struggling with?
Cocaine, name it, cocaine. I actually was in a period where I was actually running cocaine in my arms and my veins and all that stuff, and then would call my dad up to tell him what I was doing.
Right.
To try to get that anger and that response, and his response was totally different. He was very calm. It'll be okay. It's all right.
Wow.
And then I would get pissed because he was calm. And then when you think back on it, after you get through it and make it through it, you think back and you're like, wait a minute, he was probably messed up too at the same time. He couldn't have responded any different.
Right, right. Yeah. So tell me, let me ask you this: how was your relationship with your father? Was it strong, or was it estranged? Or
no, it was good until his wife made it different. As far as separating, I didn't get to see him for 6 years at one period of his life. The last 6 years of his life, I didn't get to see him until 11 months before he passed. I finally got to see him.
Wow.
So that was a difficult time period. And then when I finally saw him, I knew it would be the last time I'd see him. It's just something I felt within me. But it was, you know, I have to look back on the times that I did get to spend with him all the times and travel with him and tour with him and all those things I was able to do.
Oh, that's cool.
I have to live off those things. So those are wonderful things to have to remember us by.
No matter what you ask them, they'd be, and when they cuss, they're great. You know, they go, poo-poo-dooey, poo-poo.
I know you've mentioned a few times that you've never listened to your father's records while you were growing up. So when you actually listened to them, when you actually got a chance to listen to them, what was the experience like?
Well, I when I was younger, it wasn't so much of a thing that I didn't listen to them. I wasn't allowed to. I would sneak and, you know, try to listen to things, but when you're that little, you really don't even understand what you're listening to. So it's a thing of going back, when you go back and listen to it and you see what people appreciated about him.
Oh, Lord, I'll never do it again, Lord, please. Oh, Lord, please, don't make me, Lord, there's nothing left to do.
Because you're only looking at your dad as the dad that, like, he worked in a factory or something. That's
Right,
it looks
right.
to me. So I was able to, once seeing that, been able to look at it through the eyes of how other people saw him and see the genius of him and how he was a fantastic storyteller.
I do have to ask you that, since, of course, he put a lot of his personal experiences on stage. What were your feelings in regards to that? Like, how did it feel that he was putting his whole life on stage?
It didn't bother me at all because his whole life has been that way. My dad's family have always been like that. They didn't sugarcoat anything. They didn't hide anything. I was 5 years old selling bootleg for my aunt because she was in the house turning a trick. So, nothing was ever hidden. So it was always a thing of discussion and always talking about it. So him doing that was just a natural thing of what I've always seen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how was it writing this book? Was it easy to write this book?
It was easy, but it was a lot of times were difficult where I would actually get physically ill because when you're having to remember things that you didn't remember and they start popping up because you're talking about a certain subject and something pops up, that's the things that were difficult because you're like, oh, I forgot about that. And you suppress things that a lot of times to survive, and then having to relive those things and go through those things, knowing that I had to go through them in order to become a better person.
What was it like behind closed doors?
My dad was totally opposite from what people see. My dad was very quiet.
Really?
He was an introvert, very, very soft-spoken, very soft-spoken.
Wow.
So he was nothing like what people saw. That's why when I get frustrated when people want to play him in movies or whatever,
right?
And they doing the Richard Pryor they see on stage. Do you want the caricature or do you want the real Richard Pryor?
Right.
And I've never seen anyone grasp that yet because they're constantly sticking with that Richard Pryor, which wasn't him.
Right.
And I would love to see somebody, if they do portray him, somebody being able to do both sides of him as far as who he was on stage and off stage.
That's right, we bad, that's right. You don't want no shit either. That's right, darn right.
So I understand, obviously your dad had a ongoing relationship with Gene Wilder and Paul Mooney. What were those relationships like when the cameras were off?
Well, with Paul Mooney, they always hung out, and was around. He was always around. Gene Wilder, my dad, once they cut, there was nothing there.
Really?
Oh yeah, they weren't friends at all.
Oh my! What?
No.
I would expect that because the chemistry on camera, on film, seems so...
Well, yeah, they're giving you a $500,000 check or $1 million check. You're going to love the person you're next to.
Oh, wow.
They just worked very well together.
Why didn't they work when the cameras are off?
I think because they were totally two different people. They were total opposites, Yeah. And I'm sure, my dad, doing the drugs, I'm sure that was an issue. I'm sure, some people are arrogant and you have to deal with those issues.
Right.
So, it's a thing where, water and oil don't really mix.
Yeah. While you were in the Navy, you came out to your parents.
Right.
How did that go? How did your parents take that?
Actually, my father, the one I thought would go ballistic, wasn't. And my mother, who I thought was calm, was doing the crying. It was total opposite.
Oh, okay.
But my mother was okay after a while, and everything and understanding, because she was just like, what did she do wrong? What did I do wrong? So my dad always told me, just whatever I do, be the best at it. Don't have to do anything. So whatever I was going to do, I was going to do it right.
Right.
Go all the way with it. So,
so you went all the way there.
All the way.
Pedal to the metal. Were there any hints of, did your parents ever see any moments, or were you always in the closet for a while
I'm sure they saw a lot of things. But sometimes, especially in our community, things aren't discussed.
Right.
They may see something and they may see little Johnny and everything. He acts more like Sally, but they ain't gonna say nothing.
Right.
And they see him doing his things and they just gonna put those blinders on and act like it doesn't exist. And if little Johnny mentions that, then he's ridiculed and talked about and made to feel bad because of who he is as a person. And that's why you get people that don't talk. You got issues with mental health issues. You got people committing suicide, all because they don't feel they can talk to their parents. And anybody, you should be able to talk to your parents before anybody else.
Right, regardless.
And it's unfortunate that that stigmatism's on that. So,
yeah,
you know.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
It is a shame. But were you surprised, like when you did come out? Like, were you surprised at the response that your parents gave you?
Because when you have something in your mind like that, as far as talking to people, you create the worst scenario possible. You know, almost like being murdered. You know, that's the way you're looking at it in your mind. And when it doesn't happen that way, then it's like a sigh of relief. You're like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
But then also you hear those horror stories where there's people that, you know, they're, you know, kicked out of their families.
Yeah, they're shunned. They're banished almost.
I can't even imagine.
Right.
You know, I can't imagine doing that to my child. My son is 29. I can imagine if he would have came to me and said something like that of me, you know, just totally not having anything to do with them. I just can't comprehend that.
Right.
Regardless of what your beliefs are.
Your son.
Yeah.
Your son. So you were married previously, or you were married before.
Yeah.
And there was no inkling, no, you know what I mean?
I was handling my business before I was married.
Oh, okay.
Then I got in the church and got married and was doing the right things, and then, you know, you end up with divorce because my wife wasn't faithful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. But then obviously that made you realize that your life, you wanted to go that route.
I'm going to do whatever,
being gay.
Whatever I want to do, I'm going to do it. You know,
Okay.
so. And then right now, see, this is how life is so different. I take things. Right now, like I'm back in the ministry, back in church, I'm doing all these things.
Right.
So life, I never want to put myself and say, this is how I have to stay. This is how I have to be. I take my journey and say, this is where God is leading me. This is the direction I'm going in this moment. And this is what I'm doing right now. And that's where I'm at now.
Oh, okay.
So
wait, where's this, when you say where I'm at now, where's
where
that?
I'm at now is that I'm back in the church. I'm back in doing minister training again. My ex-wife is actually my pastor, and we get along very well.
Small world.
Yes, small world. And my direction of my life is on Christ and how I can be a better person. And also how I can talk to somebody and maybe help somebody who's going through some situations. Because a lot of times people don't see their way out of things. And sometimes it takes somebody to say, hey, I've been here and I've done all this.
Yeah.
You know, look at me now. Look what's happened to me. Look at my direction. This is how I got here. This is what I wanted out of life.
What was the last memory you have that you shared with your father before he passed on?
The last memory, I had to tell him my mother died. My mother died in 2003, so this was 2 years prior to seeing him. I had to tell him that she was dead, which he didn't know, which was a horrible thing to do because he couldn't really talk, and all you could do is see the expressions in his face and his eyes filled with water and everything, and the tears coming down.
Yeah.
Because all she wanted was to talk to him one more time. And because of the evil stepmother in the house, she refused to allow that to happen.
Of course.
And so that was the most difficult thing. And telling him I loved him and kissing him goodbye, because I knew in my heart that would be the last time I see him. That was a really tough thing. I was like 3 minutes short of finding out on TV first.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a tough thing, yeah.
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 I know you said something because I've, from interviews that I've heard and read before, that you've said that you've had a hard time holding, or you've had a hard time saying that you are Richard Pryor Jr. What's the reason behind that, if you mind me asking?
Well, I think before it was a thing where when you don't know who your friends are, you don't know if people are real to you, you don't know who they actually are. Do they like you for you? Do they like you for your name? All those things played an impact as far as me being uncomfortable with that. And then being accepted, all those things. But when I got older and then talking with my mother and everything, you know, her saying it's okay to be who you are.
Right.
That's your name. You know, and so I had to embrace that, but it's like getting rid of baggage. You know, I had to get rid of a lot of things as far as the way I thought about things, the way I perceived people, the way I looked at people, because I always looked at the negative first before the positive. Yeah. Because I was accustomed to seeing the negative.
So what is it like being able to, carrying on his name? Is there like a lot of pressure on top of carrying on his name?
No, the feeling of pressure that I had years ago in the early 80s and mid-'80s and stuff like that are gone because I've found my own path. Instead of like saying, I'm going to be a stand-up comic and do this, I found things that geared towards the way I was and the way I felt about things and the passion I had. I love doing comedy, but I don't necessarily like standing up doing stand-up. I would love doing comedy and film on stage and all those things. Yeah. Telling stories, I love telling stories. So I had to find my right path as far as to go through. So it's, the DNA part is in me.
Of course.
But the direction is mine.
Right. So what is your direction now?
Well, singing, acting. Actually, what I'm doing now is taking my book and I'm making that into a one-man show.
Great idea.
Portray all the characters.
Nice.
So that's what I'm actually working on now.
I like that.
And then we're working on a screenplay for it as well.
Oh, I think it's going to be, I'm excited to see that.
What's up, guys? It's your boy Pascal. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But if you want to check out some more of our stuff, we got some great interviews, skits, parodies, and other great music. Go and click that like button on the Facebook page. And also, we do have a YouTube channel. Go hit that subscribe button real quick. It would really mean a lot. We got other great stuff over there as well. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Much love to you guys. Peace.
That boy is good. Pascal, you are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild.